Story 11. The Princess and the Pea. Once upon a time, there was a kingdom ruled by a kind and wise king. The king had a young son who wanted to find a princess to marry and make her his queen. The prince was very particular, and he wanted to marry a true princess. But it wasn't easy to find one. One stormy night, a knock came at the castle gates. The guards opened the gates to find a drenched and bedraggled young woman standing there. She claimed to be a princess seeking shelter from the terrible storm. The king welcomed her inside and decided to test if she was a true princess, as he had heard tales of impostors. The king's plan was simple. He ordered the servants to prepare a bed for the guest. They took a pile of 20 mattresses and piled them high in a room. On top of the mattresses, they placed a single, small pea. Then, they covered it all with soft blankets and invited the princess to sleep there for the night. The next morning, the king eagerly asked the princess how she had slept. To his surprise, she replied, "Oh, dear king, I had the worst night's sleep ever. There was something hard in the bed that kept me awake all night, and I am covered in bruises." The king knew that only a true princess could be so sensitive that she could feel a tiny pea through 20 mattresses and blankets. He was overjoyed to have found a genuine princess, and he gladly gave his blessing for her to marry his son, the prince. And so, the prince and the true princess were married, and they lived happily ever after in the castle. The pea was placed in a special glass case to remind everyone of the sensitivity that marked a true princess. And they all knew that they had found a real princess, thanks to a simple but clever test with a tiny green pea. The end. Story 12. The Wizard of Oz. Once upon a time, in a small farm in Kansas, there was a girl named Dorothy. Dorothy lived with her Uncle Henry and Aunt Em. They were kind to her, but Dorothy often felt lonely. She had a little dog named Toto, and together they played in the fields. One day, a terrible tornado came swirling toward their farm. Dorothy and Toto tried to hide in their house, but the wind lifted it up into the air, and they were carried away. After a bumpy ride, the house landed with a thud. When Dorothy opened the door, she found herself in a colorful and strange land called Oz. She soon realized her house had landed on a wicked witch and crushed her. The good witch of the north appeared and told Dorothy that the witch's death had set her free. Dorothy wanted to go back home to Kansas, so the good witch told her to follow the yellow brick road to the Emerald City. There, she could ask the powerful Wizard of Oz for help. On her journey, Dorothy met 3 friends, a scarecrow who wanted a brain, a tin woodman who wanted a heart, and a cowardly lion who wished for courage. Together, they faced many challenges, including the Wicked Witch of the West, who wanted to stop them. They finally reached the Emerald City, where they met the wizard. However, they discovered that the wizard wasn't as powerful as they thought. He was just a man behind a curtain. But the wizard helped them realize that they already had what they sought. The scarecrow was smart, the tin woodman was kind, and the cowardly lion was brave. With the wizard's help, Dorothy and Toto returned to Kansas. She was reunited with her family, and she realized that there's no place like home. And so, Dorothy's incredible journey to the land of Oz taught her the importance of friendship, bravery, and the value of home. The end. Story 13. The Ugly Duckling. Once upon a time, on a farm, there was a mother duck who sat on her eggs. She was excited about her little ducklings that were about to hatch. When they finally did, she noticed that one of the ducklings was different from the rest. It was much larger and didn't look like the others. The mother duck was puzzled but loved all her ducklings just the same. As time passed, the odd-looking duckling grew bigger, but it remained awkward and not as pretty as the other ducklings. The other ducks on the farm noticed this and teased the poor duckling. They called it ugly and didn't want to play with it. Feeling sad and rejected, the ugly duckling decided to leave the farm and find a place where it could belong. It wandered through meadows and forests, encountering many animals along the way. Some were kind, while others were not so friendly. The ugly duckling faced hardships and cold winter weather, but it kept on moving. As spring arrived, the ugly duckling came across a beautiful pond. It saw a group of elegant white swans swimming there. The ugly duckling wished it could be as graceful and beautiful as those swans. It decided to approach them, even though it was afraid of being ridiculed again. To its astonishment, when it approached the swans, they welcomed it with open wings. As it gazed into the water, the ugly duckling saw its reflection had transformed into that of a graceful swan. It had not been an ugly duckling after all, it was a beautiful swan. The other swans accepted the new member with joy, and the once ugly duckling felt happier than it had ever been. It realized that it had found where it truly belonged, among its own kind. And so, the ugly duckling lived happily ever after, swimming on the beautiful pond with its new swan friends, no longer feeling ugly or out of place. It learned that true beauty comes from within, and sometimes, it just takes time for one to discover their own uniqueness. The end.